I am joined today by Todd Hager, Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at Macro Solutions. He's also a Financial Systems and Technology Committee member for the Association of Government Accountants, a founding member and co-chair for the ACT-IAC Blockchain Working Group, the industry chair for the ACT-IAC Emerging Technology Community of Interest, where I've gotten to really know him, and he's a good friend. And so thank you for joining me today, Todd.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
So can you share a bit about who you are, where you're from, and about what you do?
Sure. That's funny. That's true. I mean, you and I have been working together for over 5 years now in this.
We've never had this conversation.
I know, we really haven't. That's true. But yeah, before the whole emerging technology thing, I grew up in New Hampshire many moons ago, and started off, strangely enough, with a hotel company out of undergraduate, and they had me come in, and I was the guy that would go and help to open new hotels. Set up the systems for the new hotels, and this is in the late 80s, so it was kind of a little bit simpler time in terms of the systems that were available. But the room systems, even the financial accounting and payroll and those kinds of things, and daily reporting and so forth. But life was a little bit simpler. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was a little bit simpler then. I could do it alone, so it wasn't all that difficult. But and then sort of evolved into doing more and more kind of consultative activity with business for improving systems. And then in Washington, you just can't miss but work within the federal government and helping improve systems in government. So
interesting. So what got you into an IT career? Is that what you did in your undergraduate?
So yeah, I started off as a CS major, ended up really majoring in business at the end of the day, thinking that was, I can't sit behind a computer, I've got to be with people and all this kind of stuff. And then ended up, of course, just doing systems work. So it was a nice merger, actually. The business part of it was actually really helpful. So I sort of came at it from that. I was, in high school, we did basic programming. I mean, I don't think I was really exposed to Excel until maybe, or it wasn't even Excel, I'm sorry, it was Lotus. That's right. It was Lotus. I think it was exposed in like my senior year of high school. And I thought it was so cool, and just, it was so easy to start working in it and so forth. And then of course in college, that was an important thing too. And I remember going to the computer lab, and it was like, finding time between like a block between midnight and, 1:30 to be able to do a program, because you had to sign up for those slots. But it's nice being able to do all this work right now, sitting here in front of my own computer in my house, with my dog next to me. So
I mean, at least as long as I've known you, you've kind of been focused in the financial sector in terms of systems. How did you get there? I mean, from establishing hotel systems, how did you end up in the financial area?
That's a good question, and I hadn't really thought about it until really we started talking about this. But you're right, that merger of the business and the systems is where that came together. And so I started off, after working within hotels and doing a lot of work there with financial systems and so forth, really going into ERP. So the enterprise resource planning, largely around the financial management systems, and doing implementations and helping customers to upgrade and do, support those systems and everything else too. That was sort of a through line, I think, for me all the way to today. I mean, to some degree, I'm still touching that in some ways. Although, as you know, we're doing a lot more on emerging tech, but there's no reason to leave that function behind. There's a tremendous amount of value in applying, intelligent automation or analytics and this kind of stuff to the financial system space. So I guess it wasn't a zigzag. It was a little bit of a bit of a straight line, but it made its way through financial systems to where we are today.
I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I think it shows that I agree with you. Having a focus on not just the technology aspect, but the business aspect kind of probably sets you up for broader capability in getting engaged in different industries.
Yeah, and it's somewhat atypical, right? So the folks that we meet sometimes in the space, engineers and those kinds of folks, which I love, being able to work with people who can really just hunker down and get things done. Sometimes don't gel well with business folks, and not because there's anything, animosity or difficulty. It's just that sometimes they're, one speaking English and one speaking French, and it's a little difficult for the translation to occur. And what you need, and that's really where I oftentimes came in, is I wasn't the heavy tech engineer, although I do kind of miss those days a little bit, being able to code, but being that go-between, understanding requirements and being able to articulate those in terms of what the system needs are going to look like, and how to have the engineers be able to develop the things that they're looking for, that the business folks are looking for, to make things run better, more efficient, higher quality, et cetera. So
Yeah,
I
interesting.
think I found myself in between.
Yeah. So you've been in IT for a while. What's something, if somebody came to you and said, Todd, you get to make a new rule change for all of IT, what's something you would change about something we've done in IT that you think should be changed?
That's a really good question. Yeah, actually, I'll step away from the technology for a moment, and just on a personal level, my daughter is graduating from college. I know you've gone through this as well too, so we've talked about it. And she, in fact, this next month in May, she'll be graduating, and she's a computer science and financial engineering major, and just sort of seeing how she has experienced the world in her undergraduate work as a woman, and just, I mean, somewhat atypical, I think, for what we may have become used to, where it's just a bunch of guys doing engineering stuff, certainly back in the 80s. I am really, I mean, I think that it's really energizing to see the kinds of things and hear what she's talking about. And for her, it's very matter of fact that she's gotten great support to be able to be where she is. She is, engaging with a variety of communities. There is no barrier that I see at all there, which is just fantastic. And I think that, that generation certainly is going to blaze the trail and make it all happen. But I think it's really incumbent upon us now to make sure that we are removing those biases that we have that keep us, that, the way we phrase our job descriptions, or the way that we sort of, talk about things and everything else, it's sometimes loaded either, with gender, or with, a certain type of person or skill or whatever. And it would be, if I could do one thing, it would be to have us all sort of, be a little bit more aware of how we come across in either, posting jobs or hiring candidates, or talking about the kinds of work that we're doing in a way that's slightly more inclusive, and aware that these kids are coming up and they are bright and capable across, a whole spectrum of, different types of kids. And I think that it is our loss if we don't take advantage of that. So
Totally
finding a
agree.
way to do that, I think it's tough. But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, you and I have talked about it before, because we both have daughters who want to be in IT, and so I completely agree with you. It's a challenge and a focus for us old timers to be that welcoming for them when they come into our field.
Absolutely. And it's incumbent upon us, because they don't see a barrier. I mean, they're just going, whether right. Whether anyone likes it or not. And I think that's great, and exactly what it should be. We're the problem. We just need to make sure we've getting those blinders off. So
fantastic. So going into the future, where do you see either yourself, or where do you see the work you do within financial systems? Where is that headed?
Yeah, so I think, financial systems back in the, certainly in the early, 2000s and everything else, it was kind of cutting edge, and they were, doing some really great stuff, and not to get too deep into names and stuff, but a variety of companies really kind of made their name and being able to do ERP work and so forth too. What I find now, though, is that financial systems, unlike other systems, have been a little late to the game in terms of cloud migration and really taking advantage of sort of new ways to be able to work, and they're still very heavily rooted in, sadly, some of them even in mainframe, but rooted in these kind of client server based activities where you've got, either, God forbid, a local server, or, some kind of a data center or something like that. I think that we're going to be, we have to be moving away from that. It's just very slow to happen. And I get it. These systems are, in addition to being very, complex, they hold, very important information. So, that's not to be handled lightly. But if I could, sort of wave a magic wand, it would be to really make that migration happen a little bit more quickly. And in doing so, because I think we're all going to realize this too, the value of that migration is going to be tremendous. And we almost don't even know it, because we're just so used to the way things work right now within the systems that we have. You're seeing it a little bit in the way human capital management has made the migration. And if we look at that as a good example, you start to see that it's driven by the ability for self-service and and being able to really engage your customers, which are employees largely at this point, to give them what they need and to let them drive, how to, sort of like the UI is all around those users, not around, sadly, the HR department per se. It's really for the people they serve. And I think that same transformation needs to happen within financial management too. So.
You think that the barrier to that, it takes a lot to move a financial system, or let's say I'm a federal agency. I am, but let's say I was at a federal agency, not my own, I'm representing MCC today, and wanted to migrate from, say, a legacy style system to a cloud-based system. That's a risk, right? There's large risk in your financial ledger.
It is, and it's not so much just that the technology. We know the technology exists, but these systems are so heavily rooted in the kinds of technologies that built them out in the 90s and early 2000s, that it's really incumbent upon those companies, not again to name names, to really help push that migration forward. And I know that they're working on it, so it's not like it's falling on deaf ears, but it's just not happening fast enough. And I think that we're missing a lot of opportunity until that transition really occurs.
Interesting. Well, Todd, I want to thank you for joining me today. I'm really happy to hear your story. I don't know why we didn't have a beer and have that conversation before, but maybe soon we'll have more conversations and share how things go for our families after this epidemic is over. So, but thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely. Great to see you, Jeremy. Thank you so much for including me.